Oh, have I got a treat for you. We have started working on the Hebrew Matthew from Cochin India, and we could not wait to share this with you. What I'm going to show you will be very challenging for some and might even be hard to believe. Because just like Yeshua, Jesus, challenged the people during his day, this will challenge you and what you think and what you have been told, and will possibly shake up a lot of the man-made doctrinal beliefs that you might have. You will see Yeshua, when he was here, he was exposing the lies and the hypocrisy of the famous, popular religious leaders at that time. And he was telling people to reject the oral Torah and even violated it in front of their faces. So Matthew 5:17 through 19 are verses that people will go to show that Yeshua, Jesus, did not do away with the law. In fact, if he did do away with the law of God, the instructions of God, then Yeshua just could not be the Messiah. Nevertheless, the way that mainstream Christians and mainstream teachers in Christianity get around these verses are either ignore these verses altogether, which, by the way, most people do not read their Bibles, and only reading a few verses here and there that their preachers point out on Sunday. So they won't ever come in contact with these verses or know that these verses are there. That's the most case scenario for the people out there that are called Christians. The other way that they get around these verses is they focus in on the till all is fulfilled words and say, you see, there, it's fulfilled. So that means it's done away with, which is ridiculous because the sentence starts off with, do not think that I've come to do away with the law. So how could it be done away with? And the word there for fulfill means to make full or complete, meaning it is now whole. There was something missing, and now there's nothing missing, and it is now perfect. Also, the other problem is saying as long as heaven and earth exist, nothing in the law will pass away. So, heaven and earth are still here, so the law is still here. And the short answer is we are not free from the law. We are free from the penalty of breaking the law because Yeshua had paid the death penalty. So we are not free of the law. The law still applies, and Yeshua is still saying that the law is still very much clearly still applicable. But what does the Hebrew Matthew from Cochin India say? Let us look at it. Let's see what it says. All right, now let us look at Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. And we're going to look at the English. We're going to go to the King James Version to see the backbone of the Greek and the English and what is there, what does it say, what is the most popular, because most versions out there will peg themselves off of what the King James Version says. And we're going to look at what it says word for word and analyze this. Now, before we read it, we're going to make sure that we note that this is Yeshua. This is Jesus talking here. This is the red letter. This is not Paul. This is not the disciples. This is not making an interpretation. This is a direct quote from something he said. And it goes as follows in verse 17 through 19. Think not that I've come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Now, again, giving you some backdrop of this manuscript, this is the Cochin Hebrew Matthew. This was found in Cochin, India, in the state of Travancore, and it was placed in the Cambridge Library, and that is where it is held today. There are other manuscripts of Hebrew Matthew out there. There are 28 versions of Shem Tov's Hebrew Matthew. Shem Tov was a Jewish man who had to do debates with the Catholics, and so he made a copy of a Hebrew Matthew from Hebrew Matthews that existed prior to the Inquisition of people burning them and seeking them out to destroy them. So this is not Shem Tov's, and this is not the Catalonian Hebrew Gospels, Matthew. This is not any of the other ones out there. This is specifically just the one from India that we're looking at here. It's from Cochin. All right, and it says as follows, verse 17, "Do not think I came to abolish the Torah or the words of a prophet, but to establish." And that last word in the Hebrew is likayim. Likayim means to maintain, to establish, to fulfill, to make true, and to uphold. The reason why it was decided to go with establish for this verse is because further in the next two verses, you will see establish is what the standard and the focus is on this topic. The context is establishing because at the time, historically, the people that were there in the first century were coming up to Yeshua, Jesus, and saying, "Are you going to do away with the law? You are talking against the oral Torah. You're talking against the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And the Pharisees have made man made rules and regulations to protect us. And those man made rules and regulations are the oral Torah. It is man made. And you can see Yeshua throughout the Gospels is embarrassing the Pharisees. He is breaking the oral Torah in their face. Everywhere that he is being accused of breaking God's law, he is not breaking God's law. There's nowhere in the Bible that you can show me that Yeshua is breaking God's law. But there are places where Yeshua is breaking man's law. He is breaking man-made doctrines of the Pharisees called oral Torah. And some of those examples are when he puts water into wine into the stone vessels that are dedicated for praying by washing of hands. That is a violation of oral Torah. And he's doing this at a Orthodox Pharisees wedding. The next one is when he takes spit and mud and mixes it together and puts it over the eyes of a blind man, and he heals the man of never having sight. Now, some people are always wondering, like, why did he do it that way? Why did he put mud and spit? And what is that going on there? Well, Yeshua is breaking the oral Torah in front of them because they had oral Torah law that said that you could not make pottery on the Sabbath. You cannot mix water or spit with mud. So people wouldn't even spit on that day for fear that they were mixing and making clay, like a potter's clay. And so Yeshua is breaking it right in front of them. He's showing that their man made rules and regulations have no power because they're not from God's law. They're not from the Torah and the Tanakh. So the next one that he did is plucking grain on the Sabbath. There is no law against plucking grain on the Sabbath. That was a man-made rules and regulations that was added to the Torah. Yeshua and his disciples were walking through the fields, and the disciples are plucking grain because they're hungry. Well, there's no rules against that. But the Pharisees made it a rule that said, well, that's technically work. Well, the Torah doesn't say that. The Orthodox Pharisees say that. Well, Yeshua was saying and showing and exposing them that they have no power. And in fact, they're hypocrites. And in fact, they're lying and they're stealing from the people. So everywhere you see this, Yeshua is destroying man-made rules and regulations of the Pharisees, the modern religious people, is what's being disrespected, and their rules are being destroyed. And so people are coming up to him and saying, hey, are you destroying the law? Are you destroying the Torah? Are you destroying the prophets? Are you going to do away with something? Because the fake messiahs that came in the past, and even messiahs that came after Yeshua that were fake messiahs, they always changed the law. They did away with the Sabbath, or they did away with eating rules, eating unclean things, and they did away with things. And so they're asking Yeshua concerning him, hey, are you going to do away with some of the laws? Why are you doing away with stuff? And he's clarifying here. He's making it known. I did not come to destroy the Torah of the prophets. He's making it clear. He says, do not think. Well, stop right there. What does that mean? It means don't even let it enter into your head. But what do people do? They go on to the next couple verses and let it enter in their head that Yeshua has destroyed the Torah and the prophets. But he didn't. He's making it clear here. But to establish, to make a standard, to stamp it of approval. This word, likayim, in the earliest we find it, is in the Mishnah, and it means to uphold, to hold it up. It does not mean that it's complete and taken away. And even if you want to go with the idea fulfill or complete, to fulfill it, to make it full, does not mean it disappears. Some people will say that, oh, well, it's been fulfilled, it's been completed, so therefore it's gone, it's disappeared. No, it's actually perfect now. It's like a piece of pizza that was slid into a big pizza pie that was missing that one slice, that final slice. Now you put it in, now the whole perfect pizza is formed. All right, let's go on to verse 18. It says, although the heavens and the earth will cease, not even a letter or a dot from the Torah will cease, but be established. So there is a big difference here. There is something that is changing between the Hebrew and the English here. If you compare it with the English, let's go back to the King James Version. It says, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass away, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Now, the problem with this verse is while it does still prove that the law will not pass away, the law will still be there, it leaves the door open. It leaves the door open for it to be passed away. And the way I would argue that is because it says, till heaven and earth pass away. So the door is open that, well, what happens when we get a new heavens and a new earth? Will the law pass away? That is certainly how it reads in the English here in the King James Version. But when we look at the Hebrew from Cochin, it says, although the heavens and the earth will cease, not even a letter or a dot from the Torah will cease, but be established. So even after the heavens and the earth are changed, at the end of the book of Revelations, heaven and earth are changed. We have a new heavens and a new earth. We're starting over back at the Garden of Eden. The earth has been cleansed in fire, and now we have the tree of life in New Jerusalem, and there's no more sea life, sadly, but we have the garden. The whole planet is the Garden of Eden now. How amazing is that going to be? And it says that even after those things have been ceased and they've been changed, that not one letter or dot from the Torah will cease, but be established. So now the door is closed, that there won't be the Torah going away. Even after new heavens and new earth, the Torah is still going to be here. And the reason for that is because the Torah is the reflection of God's decisions on everything. It's a piece of him. It's a reflection of his heart. You get to see his mind. You get to see his decision. You get to see his stance. You get to see his essence in the Torah. And Yeshua completely nails this down when he says there are two things that represent that you can hang all of the law on. That is love God and love your neighbor. So God's law, the Torah, the instructions, is all about love. That's all it is. And it teaches you how not to offend and hurt God and not to offend and hurt man, your neighbor. It reinforces you to be loving to God and loving to your neighbor. So, why should that ever pass away? It shouldn't. Even after the heavens have changed, the earth has changed, and we are in the kingdom, guess what? We are still going to be loving. It makes no sense to say, oh, well, love has been done away with now. The law has been done away with now. And in the future, oh, the law has been done away with. Love has been done away with. None of that makes sense. You're also throwing Yeshua out. You're saying he's been done away with when you say the laws have been done away with. He is the walking, talking, fleshly epitome of the law. He is our example of what it looks like. To look at a Torah scroll is to look at him. To love God is to love him. To love your neighbor is to love him. It's all about love, people. And this is truly amazing that it's closing the door. This version, this Hebrew version, is closing the door and saying it's still going to be established no matter what until the end and then past that. The end of the age and then past that. And this right here is why we have to use establish, because it fits with the text. It makes sense to all the verses that follow. The Hebrew word is yitkayim, and it means he or it will be maintained, erected, establish, exist, survive, ratify. There is nothing destroying it in there. It's upheld and will survive. It's upheld and will be established. All right, let's move on to verse 19. And it says in the Hebrew version, everyone who shall abolish one small commandment that is in the Torah, and if he shall teach others in this way, he shall be called a little one in the kingdom of heaven. And everyone who establishes, again, establishes them. And if he teaches others, shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Notice this is reinforcing the fact that the law has not been done away with and that we are supposed to be teaching others to keep the law. Now, let's look at the word that we use for little one in the kingdom, for all those who teach people to not keep the law. Now, I've seen people say, well, at least they'll make it into the kingdom, because in the King James Version, it says, he shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Well, first of all, just from a religious standpoint, that's pretty sad if you're shooting for the least. If you're aiming for the very bare minimum and saying, well, at least I'll make it in. But, I left a trail of people in my wake of teaching them not to do God's law, which is loving and loving your God and your neighbor. I mixed them up and made them all confused. That's pretty sad. But the word used here is katan, which means small, a little one, unimportant, and insignificant. So you could legitimately translate this as unimportant or insignificant. And I have seen people talk about this word as well as being a word that you can translate as nothing. And I think that one actually fits better because these people are teaching people not to keep the commandments, to break them. And if they're breaking it and they're teaching others, well, they're acting like the evil one. So if you translate it as nothing, then you could read it as if they might not even be making it into the kingdom at all. And that should scare you. That's a very scary position. So it's very important that we all teach everyone else to establish God's law, to establish the instructions he gave us in the commandments. Establish them and teach them, and you will be called great in the kingdom. Don't you want to be called great in God's kingdom? Don't you want to be with the Messiah in the end? Don't you want to eat from the tree of life? This is truly amazing stuff here. I'm so grateful to be able to present this to you, to share this with you. These amazing finds that we're finding as we're marching through the Cochin collection from India of these different manuscripts. We are working our way through Matthew, translating it, and we just could not wait to share this with you. We could not wait to bring this out to the world because the world needs to know what's in this manuscript. We are going to continue to find amazing things, and we're going to publish this out onto the airways so that people can see it, they can know what's in this manuscript, and then they can decide what they think about it on their own. There needs to be a lot more study on this manuscript. It's truly amazing what's out here. So grateful to have you here with us, Project Truth Ministries. We don't charge anything, we don't ask for money. All we ask is that you share this out. You teach people and show people what we're finding and let it spread. We want this information out for everyone. Everyone should know that this exists. Everyone should know what this manuscript says. So don't forget, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, share this out, and don't forget to hit the bell notification. We're so grateful to have you to join us, to be our audience here, to learn with us, and to keep digging for truth. Never stop. Pursue the truth, question with boldness, everything that you do. And please don't forget, read your Bibles. As always, God bless.